Hey everybody, I'm Evan, still dressed up as Santa Claus, and welcome to the ProfNoctis Weekly Show. If you're wondering why I'm still dressed up as Santa Claus, we were going to record a all one holiday New Year's episode, but the New Year's conversation was so long and so good that we just split it out into a second episode. So you're going to get me as Santa Claus for 2 weeks in a row. So that being said, Wade, what can we expect?
It's like the 12 days of Christmas. It's like the Lord's a Leaping today or something like that, whenever this comes out. But today we are going to be talking about New Year's and New Year's goals. It's a great time for resolutions and stuff. We're going to talk about gaming goals. We're also going to talk about the distinction between a goal and a win and why that matters for you as you try to get the rhythm and quality of life that you want and deserve in 2025. With that, let's mosey.
Okay, welcome back everyone from our mini game stretch break.
I'll
My
never get
beard
used
is
to it.
falling down and now it is in my mouth.
There it is.
There it is. There's that beautiful mug. All right, everybody.
That mug.
We're back from our mini game stretch break, and we are transitioning to talk a little bit about New Year's, kind of wrapping up the year, talking about how you set goals for the year and what it looks like to kind of turn a corner and review your year. Now, Wade, you approach goals differently than a lot of people that I know, in that it seeps into every part of your life. You have goals for your Monday, you have goals for your video gaming, you have goals for your dogs, probably. You have goals, and you track them, you measure them, you do a great job reflecting on them, but you approach it in a more intentional way than most folks that I interact with, especially around your play and the way that you do that. I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about what those look like for you, how you set them, how you track them, and then what value you feel like that provides as we think about this season of a new year and wrapping up one year that we've been through.
You know, gaming and life in general is just different as an adult than it was when I was a kid. And I've discovered that if I don't plan it, it doesn't happen. And when I was a kid, I had copious amounts of spare time and boredom a lot of times in between even sports. I feel like I was active in more stuff then, but I had more time paradoxically. But as you are growing older, your tensions, your responsibilities and obligations increase. And what I've found is if something matters to you, you've got to be the one to carve out time and guard that time from anything else. And so I always tell my students, and this is something I really try to practice, is if you want it to be a reality, you have to make it a reality. So that means that you have to program your life the way that you want so that you have the rhythms, the experiences, the routines, and the quality of life that you want. It's like I always say, don't live by accident. Like wake up like you meant to, do life like you meant to. And so for me, even when it comes to something as seemingly silly as gaming, something that gives me life, though, I got to carve out time for that. And so I do have goals at the beginning of every year about what do I want to do this year gaming wise. There's more games than we'll ever get to. Like my backlog is forever long. And I think that I speak for most of our audience when I say that. There's more good games, great games even, than any of us have time to fully play. So what are you prioritizing? And as a content creator, I mean, that's something that I have to constantly ask. Like, how am I going to prioritize some games over others for my own enjoyment, but also for creation? So that's kind of my thought process when it comes to the goal setting sort of things. And we can certainly get into more specifics about this year. This year's been crazy for goal setting for gaming, but
Yeah, it has. Well, let's before we move on, let's talk about how that manifests itself with your students in your classroom? When you're talking about video games and analyzing video games, the stories, the narratives, how do you talk to them about goal setting when they have questions about it? They say, well, this is what I do for fun. Why would I set goals and something that I do for leisure? Help somebody know, okay, if I wanted to start setting some goals in gaming, how would I think about that? Where do you start?
Setting your goals in gaming, just like in anything in life, is about what is going to give you the rhythm and quality of life that you're wanting. And so if gaming is a thing that gives you enjoyment, life, a better quality of personal life and relationships, whatever it is, then prioritize it like you would prioritize relationships, a job, other hobbies, workout disciplines, whatever's important to you. Because leisure and recreation can't be pushed off to the sidelines.
Yeah.
You can't do that. Because if leisure and recreation is always pushed off as like a less than second tier B level sort of thing, then you're missing out on something that makes you uniquely you. I one of the things that I really try to live by is like, we try to commend enjoyment because life is hard. And so prioritize personal enjoyment to the level responsibly that you can so that you feel energized to get back to make the contributions in the world that you can uniquely do. I think we had an episode on this. We rest so that we can work. Does that, I think that you said that. We rest, we have recreation and leisure so that we are re-energized to contribute once again.
Yeah, it's a dichotomy. It's really just a way to look at it, right? Because the rhythms of our life are today is am I resting to work or am I resting from work, right? So is what comes out of my rest then incorporating itself into my work product? So if I am my most clear, my most ready, my most level-headed, my most myself when I'm resting well and then applying it, then am I getting clarity, am I reflecting, and am I working with intention from a place of rest? Or am I only ever perpetually in a cycle of crashing into rest from whatever work obligations I have?
Crashing into rest is like the most real statement.
Yeah.
Because that's most of us is like, I'm exhausted. Time to... And is it really restful when you're just like at the end of the day, just like falling into, your video game? Sometimes it is, but other times it's just like, I'm not even enjoying this. This feels like more work. I think that was the Chadley issue in Rebirth. People were like, it feels like work 2.0. And it's like, well...
Well, there's, I think, and there's both and, right? There's just going to be times where we absolutely crash into some video games and recharge. But if the last 50 times that you've played video games, it's been crashing into it from work.
Yeah.
That's probably enough of a sample size to know that that's a trend and that that's not really going to change unless we have some intentional intervention, which is where I think some of this goal setting comes in, because you said, what is going to give you the rhythm and the quality of life that you want? What is going to give you the rhythm and the quality of life that you want? That's a very active statement about taking charge. Things that I do and the things that I spend my time on are going to incorporate the rhythm and the quality of what my life is. And so I'm going to think about my leisure. I'm going to think about my play. I'm going to think about my rest in a way that fits into the big picture of the rhythm and the quality of life that I want. That becomes seriously difficult when we have stressful situations, when we have emergencies, when we're in situations that feel outside of our control. But I think what I really love about that, and as we transition into kind of what gives us energy in gaming, because I think that's where this heads, is that video games can be a safe microcosm to experiment and a place of safety, physical and psychological safety with these games, where you can set goals in your games to start learning what that looks like in your life. And so if you can set goals in video games and you can work on those, then maybe you can set some goals in some other areas of your life too. And those things build that muscle. So the fact that we can use play and something that we want to do for fun and rest anyways, just with a little bit of intentionality to really help us build into those rhythms in the life that we want, I think that's really exciting. So I'm curious in your your thoughts on that process and then how that contributes to your energy level. Because I want to know what energized you. Like, what is it that gave you energy this year? Because I think we need to understand where those kind of power plants are, those kind of Mako reactors, if you would.
Maybe not a Mako reactor, but yeah.
Wait, because it's stealing from the planet. Oh, no. Why am I doing my Macho Man Randy Savage
I don't
voice?
know, Santa. Get it together.
It's Macho Man Randy
Did you
Santa.
Did you ever?
And I'm here to say Shinra Corp did nothing wrong because Shinra rises to the top.
The cream of the crop.
Shinra.
Did you ever see Bill Goldberg's bad Christmas movie called Santa's Slay? Slay.
I don't think
He's
I did.
a serial killing Santa, okay, played by
Wow.
Bill Goldberg, former wrestler. And it's not a great movie, but it is a movie, and I've seen it. That's all I've got to say about that. But you just reminded me of Bill Goldberg being the serial
It's a good
killer.
aside. It's a good aside. So people really have come to appreciate about this show is that we can. I don't know of anything else that will transition from a deeply serious question to a stupid bit and then try and get itself back on track to talk about it. So when it comes to energy level, when it comes to energy levels and it comes to setting goals and allowing ourselves to not get despaired and overwhelmed because we're just tired every time we're playing games, what is it about video games that and the energy and excitement for life that you feel is more interconnected? Because you combine those things more than most people, and so you allow that momentum to carry into other parts of your life.
I'm going to tell you, and this kind of goes into maybe something we're going to talk about in a little bit as well, but like energizing and frustrating sessions of gaming, and I think it's important to understand what's going in our own sort of sphere, in our headspace as we're going through things. The simplest thing that I can say to somebody, I don't want to over philosophize or anything. If something's not fun, stop doing it.
Ooh.
Okay, like if something is, and I don't mean like be a hedonist, right? What I'm saying is in gaming specifically, if something is not fun for you, I'm not saying it's not stretching you, but if you are actively like, I do not like this, do something different. Okay, case in point with this, and like I'll talk seriously and openly about this and not overly critical. My experience with Baldur's Gate 3 has been one of the most insane sort of things that I've ever experienced in my life, because everybody says, Wade, you should like this game, and I want to like this game. There are things about this game that I really do like. But minimizing the frustrations for me in that game have been really, really difficult. I love turn-based games. What this is not traditional turn-based to me. It's probably traditional turn-based. It's just not my traditional turn-based.
Correct.
Okay, that's it. And so figuring out a way to get to the good stuff that I like, that resonates with me in Baldur's Gate 3, whether that's the co-op experience that I'm having with a friend or the decision tree character interactions of the story. I really like those things. I have to find ways to break the game. And so I'm watching other people say, like, I don't care if it's cheating. I just want to get through some of these battles that are taking over long because I don't particularly find enjoyment from this battle system, but I know there's gold here.
Yeah.
So for me, what's energizing me about that, why do I keep coming back to this thing that I don't like?
Okay.
Well, the good there outweighs those frustrations. That's part of the game for me. I consider it a puzzle. How do I get past these things that I just cannot stand to get to the things that I really, really want to experience and enjoy? And I think that that's the case with a lot of people in a lot of games. I think Rebirth is a great example of that. 100% of Rebirth I loved, except for one mini game called Gears and Gambits. I did not care for that one, but everything else I absolutely loved. But for a lot of people, it felt like a grind, a lot of work.
Yeah.
And the vast majority of that game that people found to be cumbersome is optional content. And that's why I say, if something is not fun for you, just stop it. Okay? Just stop it. And if you have to go through it, figure out a way to minimize those things, mitigate it, and keep moving forward.
I wonder if I can make this analogy.
Please.
There is an opportunity that exists for all of us outside of our homes, and it is nature.
Mm.
And it is something that we need to experience. It is good for us. We are creatures of it, and video games don't often happen in nature, so they can become two disparate things. That is changing.
Yeah.
I love sitting out on my back porch with my dogs playing video games to wind down the day. That's awesome. Like, that is really good for my soul and really fun.
Yeah.
But I compare it to the hike to get to a beautiful view or a waterfall.
Yeah.
So depending on how much you appreciate what's at the end of the trail will determine how much you are willing to work to get to it.
Yeah.
So for some games, this is a 5-mile uphill hike to get to this specific waterfall. If this isn't your favorite kind of waterfall, you really like hiking uphill, you're going to be dissatisfied both with the process and the result. So then if we understand, which is why I think it's nice to talk about games deeply, and I like the way that you talk about games, as saying, who is this game for? Who is this waterfall for? Okay, this waterfall is for people who like rich story, who do this, but the combat system might be a 5-mile uphill climb if you don't have experience with it.
Right,
So if you are in good enough shape and mental fortitude to do this 5-mile uphill hike, then this is a waterfall for you, and the hike might be good. Or if you just like the hike, just do the hike, and the waterfall may not be worth it. But if you really like hiking and you like these combat systems, so how you assess how worth it the travel is compared to the destination is always going to be interesting in video games, and it takes days and hours, similar to hiking sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You're absolutely right, and that to me, I think is one of the things. I always hated starting new books or new book series because I never knew if it was going to be worth it.
Oh, yeah. I have a friend who won't start a book series until it's finished because he's had enough times that people don't finish things or things get canceled. He's like, I don't want to engage with it until I know that it's going to be committed to, which then creates this like awkward cycle in our capitalist society where people aren't buying things till they're done all the way. So the things that need to continue aren't getting the support to be able to continue, which is another conversation entirely.
It's a whole other conversation we need to have at some point, because that is so true, though. So true.
So when it comes to energy, how do you measure and understand what's happening with your energy level in a game? You can feel yourself fatiguing with the combat system and some things in Baldur's Gate, right? So how do you manage that energy in general, and what would you advise people on for how to recognize when they're crossing over to, I don't need to see this through, I'm just like consistently and persistently not having fun?
Oh man, that's a challenge one, because I mean, there's been a few times in Baldur's Gate 3 that I've wanted to just drop it completely. I think for me, the enjoyment, I am playing through it in co-op. And so the enjoyment of playing with a friend who's on this journey with me, sharing a lot of my same frustrations, but misery loves company. And so we continue through these slogs of battles, but then we get to these really interesting story moments.
It's really
and so
good.
It's that payoff. It's like,
It's a
okay,
waterfall.
I'm really invested in this, but then I have to pace myself. So I literally, it may be I allow 3 to 4 battles in one play session, and then it's going to be a week before I try it again. So it's the longest playthrough ever, and I sometimes struggle to remember things. But it's just that kind of shared journey for me. But asking the question of what is really giving me energy about it, and is it worth it? I think sometimes you can say, hey, this isn't for me, and it's not worth it.
Yeah.
I think that's totally fine. Lies of P for a lot of people.
I was going to ask you about Lies of P.
A lot of people watched me play that, and it looked like I wasn't having fun. Even in the greatest struggle of that 9-hour thing, I was having a blast, because it was like a puzzle that I'm figuring out that I really, really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And I never felt as though it was unfair. I never felt like to me, that was fun because it was a skill sort of
Good
thing that I'm
challenge.
moving
Yeah.
toward. It was a challenge.
Okay.
And like the ending, I don't even remember the ending. I don't really care about the ending, but it was the winning there, which is so different for
Yeah.
me. I mean, not like I'm a competitive guy, but like the thing that's different for me is like I almost exclusively play games for their narrative, for their story and stuff. But that was like, no, I'm really enjoying just this gameplay
Hmm.
sort of thing. I'm not a gameplay guy. I'll usually tolerate things, but maybe I am more of one than I give myself credit because like I said with Baldur's Gate, but I can tolerate a lot if the payoff is good enough.
Yeah, and tastes change over the years too. I think
Yeah, that's true.
as I have had more ambient time, like in my life, I rarely sit down now and go, I wonder what I'm gonna do.
Oh yeah,
Right?
who
Like
does that?
I have to create those moments of boredom
You
because
really do.
it's just
They don't exist
it's
anymore.
infinite responsibility. There's always something that I should be doing or paying attention to or
Yeah,
fixing or working on. And there's a million projects. I'm just at that point in life.
right.
And so when there's always something that I really could or should be doing, the discipline of being able to sit down and say, this is rest time. This is
Yeah,
the time that I'm going to recharge. So understanding what's going to give me energy, like you talk about, and what's going to
yeah,
potentially
yeah,
drain my energy is me putting myself in situations to be able to have fun with the game. I'm going to pick those
yeah,
environments that I know is going to have a good time. For me, that is often multiplayer, where I want to, hang out with my friends and, have a
yeah,
good time. But I think streaming games, like just hanging out on Discord, streaming games for my friends and stuff like
yeah,
that in single
yeah,
player sense, has made it more social. It's captured some of that. We're sitting on a couch around somebody's apartment or dorm
yeah,
room, watching
yeah.
somebody play a game while we hang out, like just talking about what's on the screen, which I really like that communal environment.
It's
Um,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think Final Fantasy 14 was probably the one that drained me the most.
Yeah, yeah. I was hoping you would bring that one up.
I
Because you and I have very different experiences of that game.
I'm just so behind, like starting
Yeah,
from, and I wanted to experience it, but it's not.
yeah.
I mean, let me see how many hours I spent on it. I mean, I really committed
You
to
gave
it.
it the old college
I
try.
bought
Yeah.
Dawn Trail too.
I don't know why, but
I didn't
yeah.
know that I was 397 game
Uh,
hours away from Dawn Trail.
yeah, I think you were deceived by some people. I would have
Oh,
told you. I was like, I don't know.
I don't know.
Oh.
I think it's probably more likely that I wasn't listening than I was deceived.
Maybe. But people always are like, hey, come play with us and stuff. And I'm like, with Final Fantasy 14, like, I don't know how newcomers can really get to it now. I mean, I spent 11 years of my life in the story of this game and every beat and like I have core memories. I skipped a wedding to go to an in-game wedding. I did. I skipped a real life wedding to go to an in-game wedding. Yeah, I
Not
did.
my speed. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
not yeah.
I have 50. Okay, so 51 hours. So I spent 51 hours, and now, granted, some of that was on the menu screen with server issues and like trying to log in. So there, actually, you know what? Let's just start
Canon.
there.
Yeah.
You know what feels great? Having like a tight window to be able to play some games with your friends that you've planned
Yeah.
out, and then
Yeah.
you have to wait 25 minutes after you click the button to log in. Then you have 15
See,
minutes to play with your friends, and then you're done.
brother, that's how I know that you're a first-time player. We were forged in the fires of Stormblood when we had to just log in and then leave for work for the day, and then maybe you're in by the time you get home by the afternoon. Like, so 25 minutes is like, oh yeah, make a
Maybe in another
sandwich, baby.
season of life. So it just
Yeah.
wasn't really for me. Like
No,
the
I get
story.
it.
I would have been probably just as good if you let me run around with my friends, which was good.
I know,
I
yeah.
enjoyed that part, and then I could have just watched the YouTube videos of the story and cutscenes and
Yeah,
that kind
yeah.
of stuff. Because it was compelling. Like the actual narrative story, if I read it in like a book or something, would be cool.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. Really not the MMO scene is not, and you know
Yeah.
what, I look forward to getting back into it at some point and being raging against it, but there were moments where I was just like, I don't know if I can do this. Like
Yeah.
literally, my goal was to complete the main story quest, and I was like, I don't know if I can. And it was always the fun thing was always on the other side of this
It
thing that I'm supposed to
was.
be
It
doing.
really was for you. I remember that. I was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, you're grinding grass in the
Yeah, if I get,
lasagna."
I was like, oh, okay, well, if I get level 20, then if you get level 20, then we can
Yeah.
do this together. And I was like, sweet, okay, great. So I'd get level 20, and they're like, oh, well, you can only do the bad raid. So it's like, well, we're not gonna do, so just make sure you're doing your
Yeah.
duties and everything. And it's like, do your 3 hours of chores every day, and in 9 weeks
Yeah.
we can play together. And I was like, no.
Final Fantasy 14 is one of those games that I think that it would be. I know it's a huge moneymaker for them, but I think it would be in their best interest to come out with a new MMO. I think that the arc was good, and it's over. And
Oh,
because
wow, that's a
the
take.
barrier to entry is so high for new people. So keep it going for those, but like come up with something new, to where people don't feel like they're 300 plus hours behind already or 10 years behind. Because like that, I mean, I experienced the story of this game 10 years ago for the first patch or for the first
Sure.
A Realm Reborn, and it's like, yeah, that was not great back then, but
It's
it's
just a
all we
different
had.
waterfall too, though.
So
It's not
it
my
it
waterfall.
is.
Like, and so
It's not,
that's
and
that,
that
and
is
there's nothing
okay.
wrong with that. Like
Yeah.
I am not going to get to the payoff of the story that has 10 years of investment, and people
You are
want that,
not.
and I want them to have that, and I love that it exists, and I want
Yeah.
to talk to them about it. I want them to tell me about it. I want to know what the narrative is. I want to learn
Right.
all about it. That's not my waterfall. That's not my hiking trail, and it's not my dawn trail.
Oh god. Ah, nailed it.
So that's fine. And I did it. I tried it. I will play again at some point.
Yeah.
But that was my experiment for the summer. And I enjoyed it about as much as I thought I would.
Hey, listen, I as somebody that's taken a critically acclaimed game and just couldn't vibe with it, I
Yeah.
get it.
That was it. That was it. So when it comes to memorializing things that went well,
Yeah.
the games that you've beaten, right? Things that have gone the way that you wanted, the wins that you've had, in games and a little bit in life. What does that look like for you? Because that's one thing that I know that you do in your process.
I do try to memorialize either the start of the game or certainly the finish of a game. And so, like I've oftentimes said that there's a GameStop and a Barnes and Noble right next to each other in my town, and so I will always buy a new game. Then I always try to buy an accompanying book to kind of read alongside that. Classic is I got some myth and folk tales, Japanese history and mythology. During my playthrough of Ghost of Tsushima. And that kind of bringing it together was always really, really good for me. Because when I play a game, I'm not finishing it in a weekend. I'm really sinking my teeth into it. Like I did with the Lecter series. And so I always try to commemorate that. For this year, for me, I mean, there's been so many like things worth celebrating. I guess like with this channel, even which is gaming and gaming adjacent, I guess, but it's not like one specific game. But like to start out this year and to say, okay, I want to do a lecture series on Final Fantasy VII Remake because I think I've got something to say here, and then to begin to get traction, to do Final Fantasy 15 in the spring, and to turn that class into like a full class lecture series here, to do Lies of P, and with each of these iterations, to share something that I'm excited about gaining life from, and to see that that resonates with other people. That to me has like I could talk about specific wins. That is the biggest win of this year, and like to go through this thing of rebirth and to say, okay, like I'm not a weirdo, right? Like taking and thinking about games in a deeper concept is like something that people want and they crave. And I'm excited to share that. But at a more basic level, if that's the question, maybe my biggest win was that 9-hour Lies of P stream because I finally beat it. So,
Well, I think that, the specifics. I think I do. I think it would be good to talk about specific wins for you because I think you share a lot of life and process in the lecture plays and in our discussions, and so I think it's a good kind of modeling of what that looks like. But I think before we do, how do you recognize wins? Because is a win different from a goal? And
Mm.
how would you measure that? Because when you get to your goal, is that a win, or is a win something that's different than a goal? Because you talk about being able to like anticipate your frustrations and anticipate what your needs are, so you have these rhythms, and so you plan and you make these goals. And so when that goes well, is that just
Yeah.
a win, or what is the relationship between those two for you?
I'm not sure meeting goals serves for me as the win that people might think it does. And so whether that is I want to beat a game, like I don't really get a lot of satisfaction from that. But a win from beating a game is how does it make me feel? For example,
Okay.
I remember several years ago when I beat The Last of Us, and
Hmm.
I had a roommate at the time. We were finishing up like the semester or whatever, and he is watching me play through this game. We roll credits, and then for 2.5 hours on until like 3, 4 in the morning, we're just talking about it. Like, what would you do in that situation? Like, what did Joel do the right thing? And we're just processing it.
Wow.
To me, that was a bigger win than the goal of beating the game because there was something that I could take with me. And so what happened? I have a memory of what happened when I beat that game. There is nothing about gaming less fulfilling to me than to roll credits and to move on to the next thing. Seeing the platinum trophy pop means nothing to me.
Okay.
Okay? Like I like it, but if the journey, like for example, one of my favorite games of all time, Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, I haven't done 100% of the things there,
Sure.
but the win of those games transcended that goal of doing everything there was to do. Because the memories of those worlds is just like perfect, impeccable
It's a
for
great
me. So
I think that's a great example. So if we were to unpack that a little bit, for you, the goal was to beat the game. And you knew what the goal was. You knew that you
yeah,
were going to beat the game,
goal is get
right?
through it. Yeah.
And so you used your goal to guide your actions and track your progress. And then
Yeah.
when you had accomplished your goal, the insights, clarity, and reflections that that process created allowed for a connection with someone in your life, and
Mm,
you took advantage of that space that was created for the game in
yeah.
meeting your goal to connect with someone about something that you wanted to in a deeper way, to share, to be vulnerable, to learn, to understand. And it took disconnection, which you didn't have
Yeah.
before, and created new opportunities for connection. And you said, okay, I met my goal. And because I had this discussion, that felt like a bit of a win. And so that was meaningful to me. Maybe it was unexpected. It wasn't guaranteed. And so it wasn't something that if it didn't happen, you would have been disappointed that you didn't have the conversation. But then you did. It
Yeah.
was meaningful. And you say, oh, that was a win.
I think that that's a great distinction there. You know, a goal is something that's quantifiable that you are setting. Like, I want to run this 5K or marathon, or I want to lift this much, or I want to do this thing. I want to beat this game. But the win is the thing that happens in you. The goal is the thing that you accomplish. The win is the thing that you assimilate into your being. And sometimes we accomplish goals and they don't do anything for us personally. And I don't know if those goals are worth having. That's why goal setting is so important. It's like, how is this going to fundamentally change who I am?
Yeah.
Or am I just getting the 12.1 sticker on the back of my car? Right?
Yeah.
Like
Great
that's the
example.
platinum trophy. But
Yeah.
it's more about, am I more disciplined? Am I proud of something that I've done, and did I learn something from it? Those are the wins that we take with us to the grave. Um,
Yeah.
Goals are great, but if they don't transform you, I think that's the distinction that I like, and I think that is a great narrative for why we even set goals, because we want deeper wins in our life.
Yeah, feeling like a win is such an interesting thing, but it
Hmm.
is, I think, important to celebrate. We've talked about this a lot recently, and you and I have been discussing like the different kinds of celebration, because we
Yeah,
got together and celebrated, some
we did.
things in person. But then I was like, and we still need to celebrate, right? And you were like, well,
We celebrated.
I kind of thought that's what we did when we got together. But for me, there's like
Yeah.
there's a celebrating with your friend, and then there's
Yeah,
like a more
yeah.
professional, like organizational celebration where we
Yeah.
like talk about it, we discuss it, we like, okay, great, this was good. Can't believe that, this was able to be accomplished. Look at all these great things that happen. How does that impact the future? Like it's like getting to take a meeting and turning it into like a fun celebration meeting. It's like reading day at school. When you had reading day at school, you loved it. You're like, I'm still going to school. There's still a lot of structure here. Like I'm not at home playing video games, but it's nice. It's nice to sit and read in my
Listen,
pajamas.
I think that this is why you and I do work pretty well together, because um, I am very much of the mindset of like, what's the next mountain? What's the next island? See that? Row, everyone. We're not done. We just landed on this one. Next one. Let's go. And you are very much like, no, let's take this. Let's hold this. Let's celebrate this. We did it, you guys. And I'm like, we're gonna do it. We need both of these things.
It is a good it's a good tension, and it's a good tension
pairing.
creatively too. I mean, I think
I think so.
it works well. I don't have the like discipline or drive or care for like follow through for the level of like output, so it's really good for me to be able to say, this is great. Like we have structure. This is what we're going to do. We're going to create some rhythms. But that's how I create systems, is with people in my life, because that's just what I value. And when I'm dead, that's going to be the thing that was most important to me, is the interactions and things that I was able to do with the people that I cared about. So it's a special time. Let's talk about some wins for you personally. I think that this is an opportunity for just some more reflection. We're going to finish the semester and have like a semester wrap up and things like that. But for you this year, this was a big year. And there's probably some insights and some growth that you've been able to see. Before we talk about specifics for you, I wonder if you could talk about what your general process is so that people can see it when you talk about it.
Process for what? Can you explain that?
Reflecting on growth lessons. When you look back on the year and you go, what lessons did I learn?
Yeah.
How did I grow? How do you think about that? Like, what sticks out to you? Because you're doing a lot of journaling along the way. So are you like saying, oh, that's a big insight, let me circle that one? Are you just holding it in your head? Because you have a process that's, I'd say, on the more intentional side of like a daily, weekly, monthly rhythm situation. And I'm more on the like be a Katamari, like just a ball that's collecting things as it goes.
Good example. So you're wanting to know like my biggest reflections and lessons of the year. Is that the heart of the question?
So I think we definitely would love to learn what some of your reflections were for this year. But before we do, how do you take the time to figure out what those are? Like, what is going on to help you answer that question? When you think about lessons in the year, what does the space look like? Is it just done in the process of your journaling? Do you have a sit down, like, these are the lessons that I learned, and you list them out on like a number 1 to 10?
I'm going to give an example. So I set goals at the beginning of this year, really this time last year, December.
This is what I want. Thank you.
I wanted to put out 3 video essays for Final Fantasy VII Remake, because I'd been sitting on some things for 4 years, and I was like, I think that some ideas that I've got about predestination, about thin places, and about Jewish mysticism could be really helpful to this conversation. And then I was like, well, I want to do that, but I'm not a content creator. Like that's not it. I just have a goal of getting this thing out there. And so I did that. And then I was like, well, what if I did this for Final Fantasy 15 as well? And so that became a new goal, right? And then, it was like, well, I've got this kind of fun, cool community that's built up. Let's do something different. Let's do Lies of P. And so that was a goal. And it was like, this is just going to be a fun, like, I literally read the original story of Pinocchio on stream and people listened to it. Like, and it was like, it was fun. It was weirdly fun, but it was like, that was a goal that I had. And so, it really wasn't about, I still didn't consider myself a content creator. And I'm not sure if I really feel comfortable saying that I'm a content creator now, even though people might laugh at that. I think of myself as a gamer that's really excited about things, but the win in all of that, and I think that this really gets to it, is that I've set a number of goals, but the goals aren't the things that I remember. It's the thing that kind of transferred inside of me. I became a better educator through the remake lecture series for that month. I became a better lecturer and participant in a faculty setting during my 15 stuff. I became a better communicator and host for weird sort of things during Lies of P. I became really organized during the Rebirth series. And this was something. We had a goal of doing all of these interviews. People may be shocked to know this. It probably comes out in the interviews. I hate interviews, or I've always hated interviews.
You guys need to. I will never forget the conversation that we had about
You
the
were so
show when we
disappointed.
were brainstorming. No, it became a goal for me to win you
Yeah.
over on interviews.
Well, it was a win. I mean, you can chalk that up. Because we
it was
did.
such a you
Yeah.
approached it with such a hard line. We'll talk more about that another time.
We will, but that was one of those things. I became a better interviewer
Oh yeah.
as a result of that lecture series, and that's partially because of you, and partially because of just the absolute gauntlet
Just practice.
of guest interviews that we did. I mean, it's just practice makes perfect.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
we
practice.
spent 10,000 hours on interviews. Can't not be good at it at the end of that.
Definitely, I definitely feel like. I mean, just looking at the way that this show has changed, has been crazy. And we're going to do our semester review, so it's tough for us to separate the New Year. So we're trying to keep this process oriented as far as like reflection and wins.
Well, and that's what I'm getting at. Like each of these, there were specific channel and personal goals that were set, but the wins that came from it all was how I developed, how I strengthened and enhanced and empowered throughout the course of this year. I am not who I was and what I was this time last year when I was looking ahead of making just 3 video essays.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking very, very differently.
Yeah.
Very differently, right?
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with subscriber numbers.
No.
It has everything to do with the process and the intentionality. I mean, to the point, like we're launching this gains before games workout thing that I'm really, really excited about, to do like some pseudo coaching and motivation, as well as like combining that with gaming and stuff. Like these are things that I never would have realized I could even think about this time last year. But that's what I'm talking about. What is the rhythm and the quality of the life that you want? And how are your goals going to evolve into wins to get you there? This is the question for planning in life. And this is the perfect time to do it because New Year's resolutions are a thing for a reason. So what are those resolutions that are going to get us all to the life that we want at the end of 2025?
I think that's great. I've noticed a trend in the way that you articulate this, and it's something that is helpful and I really like. And it is, you focus on these typically phrases that end in like ER, right? Like, because they're states of being. Now, there's certain words that doesn't really work, right? Because the noun doesn't like carry over. Like you became a better host, but you are a better hoster, right? You are a hoster of people. You're a better host. You became a better inspirer. I am an educator. I am a I am a creator, right? There's these states of being that you're focusing on, and you're taking these actions, and those states of being are the change that happens inside of us. It is the change that happened because of the actions that we took. And it seems to me that these I like these states of being and thinking about how you are impact the way that you think about your goals. Okay, this goal is multifaceted. I became a better inspirer of people and a better educator because I did this interview series. I became better at video. I became a better editor because I had to edit all of these things. I tried. Lord knows we tried. But you focus on those states of being, and so thinking about those goals and those wins, and then how they contributed to the states of being that you are. What are the characteristics of who you are? What are the things that you want to be and aspire to? Do you want to be a better inspirer? You want to be a better educator? Well, think about those goals and how you improved, and have the ability to really reflect on it and give yourself a pat on the back and find those wins, because we have to. Nobody's going to measure our progress for us. There's not somebody who's just going to come out of the woodwork and like, now maybe you have somebody who's close to you or a good friend who kind of puts that in front of you where they're like, no, look how much you grew. But for the most part in our adult lives, once we get out of the school system, and maybe in some like
Yeah.
really highly functioning good work environments, you have somebody who would invest in you like that.
Right.
But nobody's measuring this progress for us. And you can
Well,
go
that's it.
3, 4, 5 years and realize that you haven't stopped to think about how you're growing, but you're
Yeah.
providing a framework that is fun and also helps us to understand what that improvement looks like.
Evan, like that's exactly it. When you graduate, you lose the freedom to access electives in life. You are locked in to your job path, your career path, your relationship path, and you forget the curiosity that you once had. Of, let me take this class because it's in my schedule, and like, I've never played pickleball before. Let's learn. Like
Right.
you lose those things. And part of it's because time, and part of it's because there's a level of insecurity that happens when we're stepping out of that which we know. But the key to expanding your capacity is to break through those barriers and boundaries. For example, one thing that I'm going to do, Clive from Final Fantasy 16 was just put in Tekken 8. I haven't played a fighting game since Mortal Kombat and maybe Tekken 3. I'm getting into it and I'm going to get good at it because that's a goal. Now, what is that going to do for me? There may be a win in that, but it's one of these things of like, this is an elective journey for me. It's not make or break, but let's see what wins we can extract from that just because it's something that's unique and there's an entryway for me. This is Square Enix and Capcom's marketing have gotten me. So
Good job, marketing teams. Good
yeah,
job.
for real.
You did a great job. So I want to talk about how you think about kind of your tributaries and waterways. And here's what I mean. Here's what I mean.
What a opener.
I want you to think about your 3 favorite bodies of water. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, we talked about waterfalls. Now it's time for
Yeah, I'm
tributaries.
dialed in here. You talk about the streams of things,
Yeah.
the influences, the little things, whether they're trickles or rivers, but the things that influence and impact us and how we can anticipate what we want to influence and impact us for the next year. That's part of your reflective process. And so even if it's a small trickle over time, that will build in our lives. Now, there's some things that are giant currents that are impacting us, right? Our jobs, our families, our circumstances. But then there's all these little streams that we can take advantage of or that are impacting us in ways that we don't want to. Maybe there's things that are influencing us that are really kind of downstream that we don't want to be, right? It's not an influence that we want. How do you think about identifying and actively managing those streams of influence and impact in your life when you kind of turn over into a new year?
Oh man, there are some things that are just going to suck the life out of you. And I think eliminating those things, or at least minimizing and mitigating their impact on your life is key. And so that's something that I do try to take a lot of stock for. That's what my morning meditations, reflections really are about. Like, okay, what do I know is coming up on the calendar today that's going to drain me? And how do I manage my energy level so that I can rise to that moment that I can't get past? It's kind of like grinding in a video game, right? Like, how do I do something enjoyable to get ready for that moment? But I think to really answer that question, identifying and giving yourself the grace to say, if I have to do it, I'm going to do it. But I'm giving myself permission to eliminate certain obligations out of my life.
That's hard.
It's really tough, especially when other people are counting on you for that sort of thing, and there's at least a relational disappointment. I'm not talking about like the obligations that parents have to their kids. That isn't.
Yeah, that's
don't
illegal.
shirk
Yeah,
that,
let's not
right?
be.
You
Let's
don't
avoid
shirk that.
criminal negligence.
Right. We're not doing that. There's
But
yeah, we're not doing that. One of my favorite examples of this, and I talk about this with clients and faculty member and others that I kind of work with in various roles. Meetings are a killer. Sometimes meetings can be productive and helpful, but most of the times the old meme is apt. That meeting could have been an email. And so there's a great passage in the Old Testament. I teach Old Testament studies in the book of Nehemiah, where Nehemiah is building this wall, and some people from the north are trying to distract him. They're like, "Hey, come up here, and we got some things to talk to you about." And he says, "Respond to them with this letter. I am too busy doing this great work to come and meet with you." And I like want that on a piece of like driftwood sold at Hobby Lobby, okay? Because that is so good. I am too busy doing my great work to meet with you. And I think that that's the kind of boundary setting that I want in 2025 to eliminate and minimize the impact of some of these life-sucking things.
I think you also just need to have better meetings.
Hey, listen, sometimes they are out of your control. If you're not hosting the meeting, like as somebody that does host meetings, I'm like, you're ruining it. You're killing the bit. You're like, you're just do not.
There's depending on how many meetings you've been in with me and what your tolerance is for my general vibe, probably impacts how much you enjoy meeting with me. Because I like meetings, and that I don't know if I'm trapping people in a prison of meetings. Probably to some extent, yes. But also, we're all just here. Let's have a good time.
Well, I feel like the difference between us is that you probably are really flexible on your end time of meetings, whereas I am like, you've got 45 minutes. Because I've got to have a 15-minute buffer before my next hour.
I think of meetings. This is not what this episode is about.
No, it's not.
I think of meetings as I just need to know when the hard stop is, and when we know when it's time to be done, I don't want things to run over. I want us to have all of our things done, but I also want to have like a human connection with somebody. Like there's so much of life that is just. We're just people are just the utility that gets you to the next thing.
But to kind of reflect on this was so the vibe in the interviews that we did this semester, right? It was like, I have a process, and you're like, I have a person. It's like, I'm putting processes over people, you're putting people over processes, and somehow it happens. And it's like, it works really nicely for us.
So far, so good. It's a good one too. I think as we think about the quarter,
I love that everybody gets to be in on our processing of our own lives right here. It's like, this is kind of like the special behind the scenes of some of the things. Like, what are the tensions that they deal with?
Yeah, it's modeling. It's modeling. It is. Like that's the whole point of the show, is just to have a space to do things. Like just this is weekly, and it's happening, right? So when we think about, you think about those streams and those influences and kind of where it's going to result for you. I'm trying really hard.
You're doing great.
You talk about it in a way where it's like, maybe there's some things that aren't serving you anymore, right? Maybe some things that fit you in the past that aren't serving you anymore. And I think that's where it gets really difficult for me, is when it gets kind of more complicated. This was a really healthy thing for me previously, but the way that it's going to be healthy for me in the future means that it needs to shift in some ways. And I think that there are times and situations where we find ourselves where we just can't quite ever get on top of it. Like, it's too complicated. We can't ever sort it out. And I think if we have to be honest with ourselves, when we're the kind of people, if we've been dealing with the same thing, the same sorting in life, the same kind of cycle, we get into the years, like if we're in like years 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you're kind of finding yourself in the same cycle. I found myself in this too. So I'm really speaking to myself here. We're in the same cycle as I draw on the YouTube, this Doctor Strange circle. I'm playing too much Marvel Rivals right now, and I've been playing Doctor Strange. Then I think we have to be honest with ourselves, and there's a challenge that comes with this, and there's a level of maturity and growth that it takes to do this, to recognize that this pattern is probably not going to change unless we change the cycle. And I think it's important to talk about the options and the ability for people to get some outside support. Like, if you're finding yourself not being able to set good goals, your life feels too complicated, you can't sort it out, you don't know how to prioritize, or you feel like it's back and forth, like, find some time with a professional, whether it's a coach, if it's something process oriented, if there's a therapist that you can meet with in your life. There's never been an easier time to just get with a professional who you literally pay to only answer you honestly. Like, I think
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like, we think, oh, I'll get this advice from my friend or my pastor or my coworker or my family member. And I think all those things are great, but those people still have to live with you after they're done, right? So if they put
Yeah.
their foot down heavy in one way or the other, like, there's like a lot of things. So you're going to get some honest answers, but you may be resentful of the honest answer. And there's a chance that those people in your life that really love you don't want to have that be the memory of that for you. So it's probably a good idea, if you have the resources and the means, to think about what it would look like to just have a few sessions with somebody to provide some external support. Because hear me say, you do not deserve to sit in the same cycles of dissatisfaction in those areas of your life. Life is way too short to not just take the time to admit that it would be great to have some extra support. And that's the biggest difference, I think, between my 20s and my 30s for me, is I don't feel like I have to have it all together. And I love other people's expertise because it lets me be me and it lets them be them. And it helps me get to the goals and be the person, the rhythms and the things that I want to enjoy in my life. So there's just a little shout out for a little external support and coaching that, I know we both provide for people and clients, but that we want to be clear, we receive that ourselves too.
Yes. I have personal and professional, both therapy and coaching. Okay. It's not saying that anything's going wrong in my life necessarily, but I need those things.
But I want things to go right.
I want things to go right. And that's it. Like it's not necessarily reacting to things that have gone wrong. That may be the catalyst for when you first start things, but I've been doing this stuff for like 10, 15 years at this point. And now, like, I look forward to that monthly meeting that I have because it stretches me, it grows me. A lot of the stuff that I share here comes straight from some of my personal coaching things that I learned maybe a year ago, 2 years ago. And these are really, really key things. So if you're wanting to kind of jolt out of that, then like I guess this is our ad for coaching and consultation and stuff.
It's
Therapy,
the single
all that
biggest
stuff.
thing I think we can do to enact change in our lives when it comes to feeling stuck is getting some support from somebody whose job it is to help people get unstuck.
And that's what we try to offer, just a quick entry into. Right? Like we are not the coach and the therapist for you.
Yeah, we're sharing our experience
We're
with
sharing
the
our experience.
journey and the
But
results
our
that we've had
hope
in our
is
life.
this show may in some ways be a catalyst to help you, viewer, find the rhythm and quality of life that you want and deserve.
And you can have someone who is dressed like Santa Claus to speak to you in a serious tone like this.
Really, who better than good old Saint Nick in only a third of his beard?
Yeah, where are these straps?
I don't know. You need a beard consultant.
I do. I need a wardrobe coach.
What is that beard like? Is it Hims that does the beard thing, or is it?
Oh yeah, this is a hair loss ad for sure.
That's a hair loss ad.
Can you use minoxidil on your cheeks?
Minoxidil on your jaw. I don't know if you can. I'm surely you can.
Oh, it's amazing. Okay, well, as we wrap up, what else did you want to make sure that we cover, and what parting words would we like to leave for the year?
Hey, listen, at the end of this year, I don't know when you're listening to this. I just want to say, on a very personal note, thank you. Thank you for being a part of this channel. Thank you for being a part of this channel's success and helping us meet our goals, but also understand that the goals have led to some significant wins, and hopefully that those are wins that you also feel in your own life. Hopefully, you've taken something, learned something. But like I said, from a personal note, we're just delighted with this community, with kind of what we've been able to grow into and evolve into, and we're excited for the future. Take some time. Spend a week or so really thinking about your own future and your own goals. Reflect on some of these questions. Maybe something or a phrase spurred with you. But I think the biggest thing that I want to say to you, more than anything, viewer, listener, is this. It can be better. Life can be better than what you're currently experiencing now. And there's some ways to get that quality and rhythm of life that you want and deserve.
We're really grateful for you. On a personal note, thanks for paying attention to any of this. There's some really special folks that we've gotten to interact with, that I've gotten to get to know, and this has been really fun and meaningful. So thank you to you for paying attention. Thanks, Wade, for the friendship, and all
Oh,
the
it's
fun
been
that we get to
fun.
have. And so looking forward to year in the future. But most of all, I want to say thanks to the folks who are taking the time to pay attention to it. And thanks to all our friends and family who are real supportive and nice, and all the kind words along the way as we've
Yeah.
worked towards half a year of episodes.
Like 30 episodes at this point.
Something
Insane.
close to that. Yeah. So, all right. Well, hey, we love you. We'll see you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Happy New Year, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Husky by the Geek for our intro music. Thanks to Nick Smith for our graphics. And most of all, thanks to viewers like you. You make this program possible. We really appreciate you. Hope you had a wonderful year, and we look forward to seeing you in the new year. Bye-bye.